Hey, this is Tammy. So, I wanted to actually, as you can see, I'm out on my morning hike, and it's an up and down event. If you've ever watched anything else, you know that I kind of go up and down. But anyway, that's here nor there. I just wanted to kind of go into a couple of things that is on my mind as I'm hiking, and really it comes down to the thought. Take a look at that. I don't know if you can see in there. Somebody's kind of built himself a little shelter. It's the way nature works, even if it is a human. And we'll see a few more of those kinds of things along the way. But I wanted to say that, I've been talking a lot about this, and I just kind of want to bring it home. And that is that the root cause of health issues is not the human body. It's not defectiveness in the human body. And I know many people would argue with me or even disagree with me on that because, well, we have evidence, right? I mean, if you look at the genetics of somebody living with autism, you can clearly see that there's specific genes involved, right? The same thing with schizophrenia, diabetes, high blood pressure. I mean, we can run down the entire list of health issues. And the interesting thing is we have even come to believe that degenerative diseases that that basically, so many of us live with are hereditary. I mean, this is the reason why we take family histories, because we want to see if somebody else has already had it in your family so that we can either prepare you or test you for it. And, this is interesting. Say good morning to Theo. He was waiting for me to hit this part of the hike. If I get a little breathless, just know that we are on a steady uphill climb. So just bear with me, and thank you for watching if this is your first time. Anyway, like I said, the root cause, though, is not the human body being defective. It's the human body at work. And the root cause of illness is not a defective body. It is the environment. It is the smoke you see out there. That's why it's so hazy. It's heavy metals in the air. It's chemicals in our food. There's currently 45 million chemicals in use around planet Earth that are being consumed on a regular basis by human beings, and tens of thousands of them, I believe the count was well over 70,000 of them, have been identified as being endocrine influencers, having an influence on the hormonal system. That's significant. And what we do know is that the DNA has the ability to alter itself prior to conception, and we also know that the epigenome does, in fact, adjust accordingly. I mean, I have found evidence time and time again that various genes will activate and deactivate themselves. The body does this in response to information coming in. So the root of health issues, not to sound cliche, is basically stress, but not just mental and emotional. It's the environmental. Stress is actually what makes you stronger. It is how these plants, animals, everything continues to exist. Because it's funny, I was just thinking, I just did a video regarding control and self-regulation, and stress is actually stimulates protection. It's the reason why we see animals and humans included in that building shelters for protection. The stress of everyday living and survival causes us to do things to keep ourselves safe. This is no different than the human body. It's no different. As above, so below. And so if we're looking at the below and we're experiencing some form of health issue, well then we might want to consider the source. As I mentioned, I mean, they study health issues all the time, and they've identified similar gene adaptations. I refuse to use the word defect. If a gene has been deactivated, it can be reactivated. At the same time, for whatever reason, basically chemicals coming in, causing continual deactivation, it'll remain in that position. But truthfully, we don't know what causes these health issues that we have. You know, let's talk about mental health, schizophrenia, bipolar, autism, addiction. Absolutely, we can identify certain genes involved in the process. Please forgive me. Hiking and talking are not my forte. But anyway, but they keep in mind, these genes were observed after the onset of the health condition. That's significant. We're not testing and looking at this stuff pre-diagnosis. We're looking at it post-diagnosis. Whether we're checking the brain structure when it comes to addiction. And we know addiction involves any number of chemicals. Hey there. But and schizophrenia, you know, schizophrenia is on a spectrum, autism is on a spectrum. We are just looking at these things post-diagnosis. So to come out and try to say that these genes are in fact the reason why your child or your loved one is struggling with a mental health issue, or for that matter, any degenerative disease, is foolish. I mean, it's a way of promoting a lot of medications and nutraceuticals, but that's not going to reactivate if those genes have been permanently deactivated. And as far as I know, there is no test that can determine whether it's been permanently deactivated. We just know what we're looking at the moment. So another way to go about this is to realize that if it's the environment, which in fact it is, and environment includes your lifestyle, you know, the body care products that you put on. Keep in mind, I said there's chemicals in everything. The body care products, even the natural products you're using, all of these things are messages, information to the body. My concern, truthfully, isn't necessarily the medications as much as it is the nutraceuticals and a lot of the body care products, because these all contain chemicals that increase the absorption rate, the assimilation rate. This is called nanotechnology. This nanotechnology is causing alterations to the body. So when you think about that number, it seems rather large and looming. Oh, look, kind of a heart shape. And somebody could go, well, there's no hope. And I mean, you can certainly say that, but that's not necessarily the case. Hope lies within. First and foremost, you know, part of the environment also includes how much we allow people to tell us what we should be doing and how we should be doing it and how, you know, what it should look like. That level of stress, expectations, does create issues. You know, we are doing this even with our children. You know, children are shy, children act out, and we tell them how they should behave as opposed to modeling for them, you know. I mean, you know, this gets really deep. I'm not going to say complicated, it gets deep, because these children are growing up and being diagnosed with all sorts of health issues, mental health issues more specifically. I can't tell you how many young people I work with living with some form of psychosis, bipolar disorder, OCD, on top of depression, anxiety, and so forth. I mean, it's It's scary. And I think about how these children presented when they were younger, and more often than not, my guess is that their behavior was what we would consider outside the norm. These norms are actually hurting our children, especially when you have a norm set for your child, but then the rest of the world acts like they're batshit crazy. And I'm sorry, I don't know anybody at this point that hasn't publicly demonstrated, well, I can't say that. I'm going to say this way. I've seen way too many people, primarily people in leadership, and that includes celebrities, who are in the public eye, people in the public eye. I don't know that I've ever have seen many people actually act with dignity. Everybody is losing their minds and demonstrating behaviors. I wanted to show you this. It's a nest up there. Again, protection, because environmental stress, meaning potential predators, has caused us to take control, protect ourselves. This is where control comes in. And so control is, by all rights, a protection mechanism. And so I've spoken about medications and control. I'll get back to the kids in a minute. But the fact is that when we have to be mindful. We have to choose with awareness what it is we're wanting to affect. And if we need medications, see, we have, isn't that awesome, you guys? A whole colony. But we have an opportunity to begin to choose how we conduct ourselves. And when we use medications, it's not hopeless, like I was saying earlier. We have to learn how to help the body self-regulate. And this is where the oils come in. This is why I'm really happy with my God-given gift, is this passion that I have for understanding, I'm not just selling oils, I'm understanding the oils and teaching it. This is why I'm very proud of my education, which does stem from being introduced to Kurt Snaubelt years ago. And again, I'll get back to what I was talking to, but just to give you a little background, Kurt was the first person to start selling essential oils here in the United States. And he came here from Germany, if I am correct. And he also opened up the Pacific Institute of Aromatherapy. Now, I also met Robert Tisserand at the time and Jeannie Rose. And I was just enamored with these people because what they were talking about was fascinating. And I got to meet Alexandra Avery and Ed, the guy who heads up Esoteric Herbs. I mean, this was just a fascinating exposure for me. But I aligned myself with Kurt for one reason. And that's because his work is scientifically based. And this is the work that I do. It's scientific and it's evidence-based. So, that said, when I say oils are a solution, no pun intended, for relieving the effects and helping the body to self-regulate, I'm not fooling. I am absolutely serious. And that said, they are an exceptional tool with children. Their bodies are young enough, they're more receptive. They don't walk around doubting whether something is going to work. See more nests? I love all these up here. So, all of these bodies, they don't have anybody telling them. If they have a parent who's helping them use them, the parent is for it and doesn't walk around telling them it's not going to work or what have you. I had somebody the other day tell me that, well, when he first started using the oils, and this guy is 19, he was feeling the benefit, he was feeling the effects, and then not so much. Now he's been using them since March, basically April, because I got it in the end of March. And So we're talking 4 months. Well, of course he's not going to feel them like he used to. His body has made adjustments. Things have come back into balance for him. And so where he was in an extreme state, it's now more of just a balanced state, a state where he has a clearer mind. He feels stronger energy-wise and so forth. So this is what happens. We use oils and we expect them to be like some, anti-anxiety medication which knocks you for a loop every single time you pop a pill, or the ones that you get dependent upon like benzos and you need to take more because you're looking for that high. But if you're looking just for stability in the system, then the oils are the answer. And they do help the body to self-regulate. And it is a good idea to be using them with the children because, like I said, currently in our world, and this is no fault of any parent, we have a set of standards with which we raise our children and our expectations. And if it doesn't appear within normal limits, we start to get upset with them. If they're shy, we try to get them to come out of their shell. If they're, kind of rambunctious and outgoing, we try to rein them in. And, I go back to being parents. It's no longer about what we tell our children. It's more about what we model for our children. I find that even as a mother of an adult kids, I can't tell them any longer about what to expect out of life or how to manage their life. I can only hope for the best with them and be the most integrous person I can be and show them what kind of person I am that not only they can be proud of, but they can potentially be, take cues from. I'm not going to say be like me, but take cues from. And this is what I believe about all parents. And this didn't mean to turn this into a parenting video, but I see this very important when it comes to the mental emotional health of our kids. And helping them to self-regulate, not trying to control them. And so demonstrating how we would like for them to be if they are shy. It's nothing wrong with being transparent about your concerns. Maybe you're afraid to do something. Maybe you're a little anxious about something. Actually saying that out loud and then letting them know that, well, this has to be, I got to do this, and demonstrating how to go about it in spite of, literally, courage is the transformation of fear. So can we transform this fear and be courageous about what we're going to embark on and show our kids how to do the same thing? Oftentimes kids who act out are, they are nervous about something, and or they just might have that be pre-wired for really bold behavior. And showing them, again, I can relate more to the anxious than the bold, but showing them how to self-regulate this bold behavior. There's nothing wrong with being assertive. Absolutely nothing wrong with speaking up and having fun, but not to the point of offending people, right? And so showing them how to do that. This is why I was saying, too many people in the public light are acting like total, I don't want to come up with a judgment or an acronym, but they're acting like they're batshit crazy. They're just, seriously, when you got people blowing up on television and on Twitter and, and the videos are going viral, our kids are seeing this. How do we overcome this? Because if we sit here and keep telling them you should do this and shouldn't do that and should, and be like this and don't do that, what you end up doing is creating distress in their system. Because if you can think back to when you were a child, I can remember, and to this day, I can still distill what is me and how I felt as a child. And, I was outspoken. I said I'm more on the anxious side now, but, there's just all kinds of, I can say that. I can also say that, honesty is another one for me. And so, and talking, if I felt like somebody was lying to me, I would speak up. And I would get in trouble for that. So what I'm getting at here is all the shoulds and the shouldn'ts and the what ifs, and this is how girls conduct themselves and so forth. It tweaked me on the inside, and I'm wondering if you can just think back to your own childhood and realize that when you wanted to do something genuinely, I mean, without malicious intent, you were just doing something because you were compelled to do it. It just felt right. It felt exciting. It, you know, it lit you up, and somebody told you you shouldn't be doing that. That's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. I mean, even feeling anxious and shy about going somewhere is still someone's nature. They may not be excited by it, but it feels right to them. It feels safe. It's that nest that they've built. For us to try to yank somebody, I mean, if we were trying to yank one of these animals out of their nest, what do you think's going to happen? They're going to become crazed, you know, vicious. This is what we're doing to ourselves with all the shoulds and the shouldn'ts. This is what we're doing to our children. So I was talking to somebody the other day, you know, because of course when you see autism and schizophrenia, and it tends to get worse as they get older. And I know, you know, some people choose not to use medications, and this isn't about that. But this is a statement about autism, the stimming and the scripting. This is about brain chemistry. This is what their body needs to help self-regulate. Now, there are ways to do this, not because there's shame involved, not because they look different, but this should be a decision that's made by them. You know, but what happens, in the meantime, accepting it as part of who they are. You know, I was talking to somebody, her brother, 9 years old, has been living with it for years. He's nonverbal. And I mean, he does communicate, but he just doesn't use words. And he's got some other issues. He's not able to use the toilet yet. And the family has accepted it for the most part. I mean, there is some concern, fears about how this is going to go as he gets older, and completely understandable. But the thing is that the longer the family continues to be in fear and the people around them continue to look at him like there's something wrong with him, the more anxious he's going to become. And the scripting and the stimming and so forth is going to get progressively worse, because we're consistently creating the chemistry level. We're shifting the chemistry level to keep him safe and protected. The same can be said for any health condition. And the reason why mental health issues tend to get worse before they get on medication as they get older is because of the public viewpoint. I was talking to a family yesterday and trying to explain to them there's nothing to be ashamed of. And the father actually said, I should not feel shame about this. I said, no, absolutely not. This is just your daughter's situation, and it has gotten worse over the years, not because of, I mean, that's another in-depth, complicated story. But the fact is that there's no shame. But in the meantime, they've lived where this is something to be ashamed of. They've tried to keep it secret. Now their story is becoming public because she placed herself in severe danger a few weeks back. And so now they're really feeling shame. So, you know, my heart breaks for anybody who struggles mentally and emotionally, because what our world does with it. We don't have a problem with cancer. We don't have a problem with diabetes. We grant people time off, time to recuperate. But even then, I've been witness to, just this week alone, somebody who is struggling with vascular deficiency. He's now a client of mine. He didn't want to go the medical route. I was treating him for some other things, and he's asked me to help him with this. And actually, I have been helping him for a while. We just got the confirmation the other day. But people at his work are trying to send him to places, and because they don't understand what we're doing. So he's under all this pressure, and all this pressure, of course, prolongs his recovery. So this is the part I'm getting at. That while there are external factors in the environment, there are also, meaning chemicals, the other external factors are other people's opinions, expectations, judgments that exacerbate the situation. And I think it's time that we realize that we're coming into this world already altered. First of all, our unique genetic code was altered prior to conception. Once in utero, everything mom is exposed to affects us, whether she knows it or not. And it all starts there. And the more we don't go with the flow, and the more we try to control out of fear without helping the body, without self-regulation, whether it's the self-regulation of the mind or self-regulation of the body. The more we self-regulate our mind, the easier the body will be able to respond. But at this point, the introduction of oils is always a good idea, because as I demonstrated a little while ago, when you use them as a lifestyle, it becomes, you start to feel normal. This is where people go, I don't need it anymore. And so fine, they can stop using it, but then all of a sudden something else shows up. This is what we've become accustomed to. We've become accustomed to treating symptoms, when what we need to do is assist the body with self-regulation, understand that our mental self-regulation and shedding the shoulds and the shouldn'ts and the opinions and the judgments and the expectations, blessing them, thanking them for their concern and for sharing, and then doing what feels appropriate for us is our road to health and wellness. That's really where we're going to find inner peace. That inner peace is really what's going to set the stage for a recovery, whether you're recovering from addiction or other mental health issues, or recovering from a degenerative problem. You know, like I was saying, this vascular deficiency actually stems from severe varicosity in the lower extremities. And, you know, it was funny, he was in pain because he wasn't following my protocol, and then his boss told him he needed to go get it checked out. And the funny thing about it is, you know, I've been telling him things for a while that he didn't take on, besides just using oils, because this is also what I do. I consult, I guide. He didn't take that on, and this is where the pain was coming from, because the fluids were pooling. I can do things, but you know, restoring full function, in his case, it's going to take some time, because these varicose veins have been a part of his life as a result of weightlifting for many, many years. I mean, we're talking decades. This guy's 60, just about 60. So when we have that challenge going on decades, this is like, again, like I was talking about the mental health issues, when it goes on for years, it gets progressively worse. And there are other things that you have to do. Children respond better to the oils because the breakdown isn't as severe. You know, as we get older, there's been years of decline, years of chemical alterations and oxidative stress that must be undone, and it takes time. And that is the other thing that brought me to doing this video today. That the kind of work that I do, truthfully, is really good for people who are looking to, you know, maybe deal with some minor health issues. The more chronic ones do require, you know, medical help, because the body is breaking down. It has been breaking down. I had this conversation the other day with a client who is He's chasing squirrels with a client. Don't worry, he doesn't hurt anybody. They happen to have nests built in the side of that hill. Anyway, you know, it's like his doctor, psychiatrist actually said to me, he understands the benefit of oils when it comes to things like depression, anxiety, you know, kind of the mood disorders, mental and mood disorders on the lower end of the scale. But he does see that there's need for medication, and I can't disagree with him. The more severe, the more severe, I mean, stability is required. In this guy's case, with a vascular deficiency, you may think it has nothing to do with mental health, but get this, vascular deficiency has everything to do with the hormonal system. That's what varicose veins are all about, is a breakdown in the hormonal system. Keep in mind, heavy-duty weightlifter, stimulation of growth hormone and immune system consistently on a regular basis led to this. And he had digestive issues, which complicated his cardiovascular system. He has worked in water treatment and was exposed to a lot of chemicals, and which caused issues in the respiratory system. So the histamine issues in his cardiovascular system also led to the inflammation, is how I want to say that. Histamine also does have an effect on the mind and the emotions. As we know, it does cause irritability. It can lead to depression and anxiety. So this is high levels of histamine as a result of a hormonal imbalance. So this is neurochemistry at its finest. Which of course resulted in low testosterone, which then leads to addictive behavior in the gym. So this is how this is all related, because he was crazy about his weightlifting. So that said, it is all related, whether we're talking about the mind or the body. And it is possible to use medical steps to assist somebody in their journey to health and wellness, especially when it's severe. So the oils that do help the body to self-regulate, and that's really where I wanted to come in with all of this. The root of our issue does come from the external world. We have everything that we need within us, and those external influences, whether they be chemicals from our lifestyle, the air we breathe, the water we drink, foods we eat, things we apply, to the conversations that we have, and people telling us how things should be. All of that matters, and it affects every aspect of our being. And our ability to control this is through self-regulation with thought and cellular activity. And yeah, so that's about it. Thanks for joining me on my walk through the hills of Madrid, New Mexico. And I will talk with you guys later. Peace out.